and I'm going to turn the reins over to her.
Thank you, Louise. I'm just waiting for the little box.
You should see it now.
Okay, let's see. Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, thanks, Becky.
Oh, perfect. Let me just get rid of that grab tab. As you saw, I just clicked on that. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. And a lot of you may not know me because I mostly work with public librarians, but I'm going to do a little bit to introduce myself, and I'm going to save a little bit of it for the talk. But thank you for coming today. This is my blog, RA for All. That's where the name of today's talk comes. And I do have a post today welcoming all of you. Really fast, before I get started, I just want to say that one of the goals that I had when I left working in a public library, I worked at the Berlin Public Library for 15 years, all the while also doing, as Reader's Advisor, also doing trainings. And one of the reasons I left was so I could start focusing on not just training library workers in public libraries to work with leisure readers, but training all library workers. And school libraries is a natural fit, which I will tell you when we get started. And I have a post today that's all about you guys, and thank you for coming. Speaking of contacting your legislators, though, in case people don't know, I do want to point out that ALA also released a press release yesterday about the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is right there on your screen, and it does include language about the necessity of school librarians in our schools in order for our children to succeed. So after this talk, if you haven't already looked at that, go through, and there's a great press release on what you can do to help make that important. And most importantly, access to all my slides are always on RA for All. They're also going to be on the Rails page, but you can get them right now on this day's blog post, and you should poke around on here later. But also right here where it says recent and upcoming presentations, it is already archived there. And it is a Google slide presentation, and it is shared. I find that's the easiest way for everybody to get access. You can also feel free, as well as showing this recording to your colleagues, you should feel free to also share the slides with anyone you want. I'm here to help people. That's what I do, so don't worry about it. So here we go, the school edition of RA for All. I know I said I was going to save a little bit of who am I, because I wanted to really tell you who I am, because a lot of you don't know. I am an internationally recognized Reader's Advisory expert. We're going to talk about what I mean by Reader's Advisory in a little bit. But although I have to say that school librarians really have been doing Reader's Advisory way longer than public librarians. And today's talk is really going to be just about how you guys are already really good at talking about books with people, but how to put some of the public library techniques that have been perfected into a school library to inject a little more spark into everything. But as I said, I have a critically acclaimed and popular blog, RA for All, and there's the link for it. Just type in RA for All. That's all you need to know. And I do like to say I'm not just making this up. One of my followers was in library school and told me that I'm in the basic reference textbook for public libraries, which is weird. But I also have 9 years of volunteer experience at the local elementary school library. All the while I've been working and my children have been in elementary school, I've been going in at least twice a month to help. And one of the things I've done, and we're gonna talk in detail about the library I do help at and the librarians who are there. But one of the things that I did was help them inject public library techniques into their library resource center. And that is a picture of me in the Youth Services Department at the LaGrange Public Library, where I am a trustee. I am also the parent of an 8th grade girl and a 5th grade boy. So I have seen the school library over the last many years, and I'm up to the middle school version of it. So I do know from experience as a parent, which I have to say, although I'm not going to talk about winning the parents over, but if your kids come home talking about the school library and are excited about reading, they're going to know that your library is good, and they're going to want to support it with tax dollars. But, you know, I'm saying this, I'm a public library expert, and I have kids, great, and I volunteered. But what can I teach you today? And that's what I really want to tell you before I get started, what I'm going to share with you and how I'm going to help you. I am not here to talk about collaboration between the public library and the school library. That is not my specialty. That is not what I'm doing. If you would like to talk to some experts about that, you can contact me. All my contact information is on my blog page, and you can get to that very easily under the All About Becky tab. And it'll be, I believe it's at the end of the presentation also, so don't worry about it. But I can put you in touch with those people. My goal today is to show you how I have worked with public librarians over the last 15 years to take adults and teens, my specialty is from 13 and up, to be excited about reading in a public library setting, about how I get libraries the people, library workers, excited about leisure reading, using the excitement we all feel about books we love, and use that to inject life into a library. And we're going to talk about the ways I do that in a little bit. But the goal at the school library, yes, you're supposed to be teaching the bibliographic instruction, and there's going to be tech lessons. That's been happening. But as I've seen over the years, when my kids started, it was all about the school librarian doing story times, just like they do at the library. Then it slowly moved into just doing tech lessons. And now it's back to bibliographic instruction, tech lessons, and leisure reading. And we're going to talk about specifically the fact that the core curriculum and the injection of that into our schools, for better or worse, has made especially reading nonfiction very important, and ways we can get kids talking about books and excited about books and reading, and make the library not just relevant to the school so that we can keep doing our jobs as school librarians, but that we make it a vibrant part of the entire conversation that the school is having. Because one of the goals as a school librarian is for you to make your students lifelong readers and library users. It might not be the top goal. Of course, there's curricular support and getting the tech lessons, like I said, and all the different things we're doing, bibliographic instruction in the school library. But if you can get those kids to leave your school, whatever age level your school is, loving the library, loving reading, because of the things you've done, that's what I do. I inject that enthusiasm and that excitement into staff, who then push it on to their patrons, in this case your students and the teachers. And we make them lifelong readers and library users. And how are we going to do this today? Well, I have an example. Everything's going to be example-based because I think that works really well. And it's stuff that I've tried and I've seen work. And it's going to be one corner in LaGrange, Illinois. And that is a picture at the top of Cossett School. And literally kitty corner on the corner is the LaGrange Public Library. As I said, I've been a volunteer at Cossett School Library with the LRC director, Kelly Davis, for many years, 9 years. And I've been a trustee at the LaGrange Public Library, as well as being a librarian, but a trustee at the LaGrange Public Library since, oh my goodness, it's been a long time. I'm in my 4th term, and it's almost done. So 15 years almost. So I really understand how these two work together and the benefits of both. And I have pictures of both, and we're going to talk about them. And I'm going to focus on 3 main areas of ways you can use some of these public library readers advisory techniques into your school library. And those are going to be in the area of displays, collection tweaks, and programming. And I do want to say, I know there are some public librarians who have logged in here today, especially those I think who work with youth, who I don't usually talk to unless I'm doing a full library in-service. And what I'm hoping here is, although my focus is on the school library, I'm hoping that anybody who works with leisure readers of any age who's listening to this webinar or happens upon it at some point in the future understands that we can learn from each other. I learned so much by being at the school library that I didn't learn by just being in the public library setting. So I hope we can learn from each other, although I am going to focus on the schools and the things that I know and I'm an expert at to put in there. I do want to say, though, even when I go out and do my trainings, my patented RA for All program, which is for public libraries to get everybody excited about helping leisure readers, one of the things I tell them is that if you want to get better at skills for readers advisory, and those of you out there who work with children know this, there's nothing better than asking a child trying to help a child find a book to read for fun, because they give you nothing, but then once you crack through, they just burst through with everything and talk to you about books, and it's so wonderful. But you say, what do you like to read? I don't know, books. Do you like if they're real or fiction? I don't know, sometimes both. And you keep going, and maybe you come up with a book. Did you like the book Wonder? Yeah, that was good. And then finally you say, what's a favorite book you've ever read? And then you get them, you find something. And then so much more than adults. Adults and even teens, they'll tell you they know how to speak the language already. They'll be like, well, I like urban fantasy. And they go into all these details. And they might not even know what the terms they're using, or they're using publisher terms, or they're saying things that they heard somewhere else. But kids are honest. It's harder to get them started, but once they go, they just go. And they just share books. And they want to talk about books. And they want to tell everybody to read the book that was their favorite. This is what I'm going to capture. This is how we're going to energize you for doing your job and get you out of sort of the rote day-to-day and all the deadlines and curricular plans and budget issues and all the things that you have to do. I know I was an administrator. I get it. But the things that just suck away at your love for why you became a school librarian. And we're going to talk about small changes that are going to go a long way. And then the goal is here, we're going to get the kids started on a library habit that hopefully they keep for the rest of their life, and that they bring into their world as an adult when they help and support their public library with their tax dollars and their votes, and that they bring their children, and that we just keep this going. Okay, so here's where I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide. This is my 10 Rules of Basic RA Service. This is the thing that I use to teach basic reader's advisory, and normally this in and of itself is an hour-and-a-half program with exercises. Now, obviously, we're not going to do that today, and as I said before, school librarians have been doing reader's advisory for years. They've been talking about books and matching books with readers. It is not something that's new. It's not new to anybody who works with a youth population. But I did want to just give you a little bit of my worldview. The original list is going to be here, and then we're going to go to that in a few minutes to look at some things. But I did amend this for a school library audience. Let me start with the quote that I use all the time. Duncan Smith is the founder of Novelist. I should say that I do write for Novelist, so I like to say that at the start. I'm a freelance writer. But here's what he says about public libraries, but I think it holds true for school libraries. It holds true for any library. Because when people think of a library, there's been studies, the first thing they think of is books. Even if those people are people that only come to check out movies, who only come to use the computer, only come to use something that isn't a physical book to read. Maybe they only use the library virtually. But the thing is, that's what people think of. Same thing with the school library. Even though you're teaching tech lessons, even though you're doing curricular support, even though there's so much more to what you do, this is what people think of. And so what Duncan likes to say is that books are our brand. That's what people think of when they think of us. But if they're not our business, reading is our business. Never is this more true than in a school library. And I keep that quote close all the time because it's why I do what I do. I'm working with reading. And when I say reading, I mean reading of any kind. I mean digital reading. I mean e-reading. And digital reading, I mean like, teaching kids to be internet savvy and read things on the computer, e-books for e-reading, magazines, graphic novels, audiobooks. I mean reading. Digital literacy is reading. So I want you to keep that in mind, and that's a quote I like to use to remind myself of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think it works really well, like I said, for a school library audience because, again, you get bogged down with all these other things, and remembering that reading is your business and instilling that love of reading is still the main reason that you really probably started doing what you're doing. Let me talk about my basic rules. I'm going to go through them quickly for you just so we're on the same page. There's a thing in the public library world, Betty Rosenberg's first law of reading, which is never apologize for your reading tastes. Never apologize for yours. Never let your patrons apologize for theirs. If you have kids who only want to read Captain Underpants, that is great. They're going to have, for fun, they're going to have to read more challenging materials in class. But your job, unless you're being told by the teachers, to provide certain things for students to challenge. But when they're coming to the library for checkout time, to check out a book to read for fun, you have to make sure it's a just right book, but our library does a just right book and a fun book. So no matter what, they can always get that one fun book. They don't have to apologize. You cannot underestimate how much this means to a child. They're coming to your library often once a week in the school setting. You get them there, and you get them to get a chance to have one fun book. So if you already are only allowing just right books and not an extra book, a fun book, please start doing that right away. It's such a small thing you can start doing. That fun book brings with them memories of happiness, that they were at the library and they got something to read for fun that they will carry with them for the rest of their life. And that is something that, you can make an impact on a kid's life. You're in a school setting. That's why you're doing this. So do that. Another thing that we talk about a lot with adults, especially when we work, we talk about suggesting books, not recommending books. It's a little harder when you work with kids because kids are looking for recommendations. They want to know if the librarian thinks it's okay. But when I say suggest, it just puts a little bit less pressure on the kid to have to like the book. So sometimes, especially when I'm working with kids, I'll say things like, it's great for me to share what I thought about the book, but when I say, Wonder was a fantastic book. It's one of the most popular books at our school library, as I'm sure it is at yours. But I can say to people, you know what, the kids I've given Wonder to have loved it, so you could try it. Or my son read this book and really liked it. Or I say, well, did your classmates read it? And then let them suggest to each other. It works a little bit better. Well, you can try this. And then one of the things I always tell people, no matter their age, because patrons don't know, from a kid to a grown-up, they don't realize this, but they think that they have to finish every book they check out. And I love, especially to get the kids at a young age and remind them, you know what, if you don't like it, close it. Look at all these other books we have here. And I always like to wave my arm across the collection. You can check out another one. We'll find something you like. And it kind of goes with the suggest, not recommend, too. If you're recommending it, it feels like they have to like it. But when you say to them, you're suggesting it, you just take it. If you don't like it, bring it back. We'll find you something else. You don't understand how much pressure that takes off them. Another thing I like to say, and this is a tip I give too, and people love this. Even adults giggle at this. I say to the kids, we have no idea if you've actually finished it or not. We don't give tests on your fun library checkout books. Oh my goodness, they think that's great. They're like, oh, it just opens up their mind. A lot of what I do in the public library, working with leisure readers, because it's not a service that's something that they need, it's something that they want, what I'm doing is reminding them that I'm here for them. And little things like this go a long way, and especially work well for kids, and build a foundation of the library being a place that wants to help them have a positive leisure reading experience, to have fun reading. Number 3 is actually really important in the school libraries. When I was first preparing this talk, I was like, oh, this is more important when adults are talking to adults because they've read the same books, and you want to make sure that everyone reads a different version of the same book. So if I read El Defo and my son reads El Defo, do we describe that book in the same way? Well, I can tell you from experience that we do not, because we both read it this summer, and I actually jotted down his notes, and I'll be posting soon a review, the mother-son review of El Defo. But when you've read a book and a child's read a book, don't expect that it's the same version. The things that stick out to that child are going to be completely different than stick out to you. Just like if you read a best-selling adult book and talk to someone about it, you might find that they didn't like it, or they liked something completely different about it than you did. So let's make sure we're remembering that when we talk to kids. And this is very important, because when we open ourselves up to the idea that just because I read El Defo and I feel strongly about it, maybe I'm identifying with the teachers or the mom, but the kids are identifying with the young woman or the little girl who's now a grown-up. But the fact of the matter is, if you're remembering that everyone reads a different version of the same book, you remember, oops, I didn't mean to do that, sorry, you're remembering to listen. And that is the key to providing Reader's Advisory Service, listening to our patrons, to the children coming in to talk to us. And what do they like? What do they want about the book? Because when we listen, we have so many more options open. We're going to, another thing I like to train public librarians to do is to write down adjectives about what they read. When you're reading books that you're going to be suggesting to kids, don't spend time on the plot. The plot is on the cover of the book. The plot is on Goodreads. The plot is a million places. The plot is in a lot of your catalogs, because I know when I'm volunteering at the school library, I'm doing a lot of cataloging, and we get like the pre-cat records, and it has the summary there. They don't need the summary. They need the adjectives. So what do you need to share about El Defo? You do not need to share to the child that it's a graphic novel and the main character is deaf. That's clearly on the cover, and it's very easy for them to see. But maybe you want to share things about how honest the book is, how it is very realistic, and how it's extremely thought-provoking, and things like that, adjectives about the book, things about why someone might like it, not what it's about, because what it's about they know. They want to hear why they're going to like it. Another thing I tell people when I'm working with public library readers advisors is to read widely. I don't think this is, and speed reading is something I teach adults because our books are longer. I don't think this is much of a problem in the school library. I find that school librarians read very widely and are making sure they know about what's going on. So I think you're already doing that, but if you haven't, make sure you're reading in genres that you don't personally enjoy, especially if those genres are different. The ones you enjoy are different than the ones your students are reading. So if you just love fantasy, but your students really like adventure, realistic-based adventure, you need to make sure you're reading realistic-based adventure. And that's important. And you also, this is a plug to read multiculturally. Even if you are in a school setting that is predominantly one race or ethnicity, which does happen a lot, even if you're in that setting, you need to read widely, because one of the things is there's great fiction that opens people open to a breadth of experiences. El Deaf was a great example. Very few deaf students are making up the readership of that. It's selling millions of copies. They're not all deaf, but everybody is learning a lot by reading that book and being exposed to the life of a deaf student. And that would be a great example of a non-racial example. Because too often in schools, I feel like we really try hard to give a multicultural experience, but we're not giving just a broad life experience. It's not always socioeconomically diverse, and it's not always ability diverse. So we want to make sure we're getting everything in there. Okay, make sure you read about books. You need to make sure you know that what is popular. Somebody will plug in for, it's hard in the school library. Sometimes you get pulled out for so many other things, but are you reading your school library journal? Are you reading websites dedicated to children's books or to YA books, depending on which thing your area you're serving? Are you making sure that you're following blogs or Twitter accounts of people that maybe you do a lot of the similar things with, or leaders in their field? I am not a leader in the school library field. I am in the public library, so many people follow my blog, follow my Twitter, to connect with me to learn about what's going on in the Reader's Advisory world for public libraries. So make sure that that is happening where you are too. Now, number 7 is really important, and we're going to talk about ways to do that throughout today, but share what you read with your patrons who are teachers and students, and encourage them to share too. My goal when I'm doing Reader's Advisory in a public library is to create a library, and this, I've done it, I've seen it happen, where the staff are so excited about talking about books among themselves and promoting books that it's just happening all the time, and then patrons are then sharing books, and everybody who comes in is talking about what they're reading for fun, whether or not they want help or not. But you've created a building where leisure reading is important, or leisure viewing. We do the same thing. We talk about TV shows and movies. My goal for you guys with all of these tips is to create an entire school building, because the library is just a small part of the school. But it's to create an entire building where everybody, administrators, teachers, staff, students, talk about books for fun with each other, not just the books they have to read. Now, maybe some of the books they have to read become books they love to read, and schools do a really good job of taking sort of like a book like Wonder, which became really popular, and injecting it somehow into a novel study in classrooms. And that's great. I wish public libraries could do that more. We had a way that you had to read something that was fun. But you do have a captive audience. And all these ideas and everything I'm telling you to do today is to give ideas and ways for you to create a building where books are talked about organically. Nobody's trying, so we'll go to that. But never let a patron leave unsatisfied. Get out of the library and go to patrons. Those two things are customer service issues. School libraries, obviously, unlike public, it's not as big a deal to do quote-unquote customer service, although the school librarians do a very good job of being friendly to the staff and the patrons and the students. But there are a couple ways I want to talk about this. Never let a patron leave unsatisfied. In school libraries, it happens everywhere, but like right now, there are certain books at the library that you just can't get. Everybody knows there. And one is like the Guinness Book of World Records right now. It's really popular because it just came out. And certain graphic novel series. They're huge. The Amulet's a great example. They're huge waiting lists. So people are going to I don't like to say make sure people get what they came in for, because that can't happen. Hold lists have to happen. We cannot buy enough copies of every of Amulet to give to every student who wants to read it, because I'd have to buy 600 copies for my school. But the fact of the matter is, you can help them find another book to read while they wait. You can find ways to make sure they've had a positive library experience, so they go away feeling happy with the interaction they had without having the actual book they may have asked for in hand. And again, this will be stuff we talk about today. All these rules I'm going to put into play in the examples I'm giving. I also think, though, I have a thing called Get Off Your Butt Rant, which is actually get out from behind the desk, which I changed to number 9 to get out of the library and go to the patrons. How many of you actually take the time to leave the library besides just for meetings with the teachers? Have the students seen you interacting with them in the classroom? Because it's really, there's that power structure. When they come to your room, to your library room, and interact with you on your turf, you are in charge. When you flip that power back and you come to them on their turf, the teachers appreciate this too. You're coming to them. Maybe you're just looking at their school, their classroom libraries, the little libraries of books they have. Maybe you're just seeing how they're incorporating what they're reading. You're going to a language arts class and seeing what they're doing. Maybe you're just coming in to ask them, hey guys, I'm just coming through. What are you reading? What are people liking? There's something in 2nd grade at my school which is called Sip and Read. And it's a great time for the library workers to get out and go into the classroom. So-and-so class is having sip and read. What are you reading? Go talk to them about what they're reading. Do you like it? What's your favorite thing about this book? You will win over both the teachers and the kids by making that effort, that customer service push to be like, I care about what you're reading. I care so much that I'm leaving my space and coming to you. You're reminding them that you're relevant in everything they do, which is really important, but you're also reminding them that what they're reading for fun is useful and helpful, because you cannot provide reader's advisory to anyone if you don't believe in the intrinsic value of reading anything, that it has intrinsic value to read something for fun, no matter what it is, even if it's Captain Underpants. I still have parents who are upset that their kids read Captain Underpants, and I have to give them a lecture about the importance of reading. It doesn't matter what they're reading. As long as they're reading on their own for fun, things they enjoy, they're building their skills. Of course, like I said, there are things that they have to read for school. But again, you're reminding them that you're there, you care about them. So much of that will help you be better at your job. And not only will it help you be better at your job, it'll make you happier. I mean, think about it. You have a mountain full of budgets and papers and things you have to go through, and curriculum areas where you have to put some stuff in, and tech lessons. But instead, you're going to be like, you know what? I need a minute to clear my brain. I'm going to go see what they're doing in such and such classroom and what they're reading, because I know they're doing sip and read now. And you go in there and you can talk to the kids about what they're reading. Meet them at their level. Hear honestly from them on their turf. You don't understand how much of an impact it really makes when you do this. I see it in the public library world when I get out from behind the desk and I go into the stacks and meet the patrons in the stacks. You don't understand how much that one little tiny overture by me means to them. So please try that. That's a really great thing to add into all the other tips I'm going to give you. And finally, my last rule of basic RA service is to bridge the physical-virtual divide, which really is a longer hour-and-a-half talk on its own about how to take the skills of things you're doing in the library and move them to an online environment. This is so much easier to do in schools than it is to do in the public library, because a lot of you are already using some form of an intranet. My school's a Google school, so everything's on Google Docs, Google Sites, but things like we're going to talk about having kids make maybe podcast book reviews, or maybe getting a book review site like a Google Sites where you can post a book and then ask kids to leave comments about whether or not they liked the book. There's just so many ways you can share documents to provide reader's advisory in the virtual world, because the kids are on the computer all the time. So having them, having a way for them to interact with you virtually is also great. Okay, so let's just go to my blog for the original list. It's always on the blog under 10 Rules of Basic RA Service. Here it is, but I wanted to show you the resources you can live without. I just want to mention before I go to the Ganooks, which I'm going to show, but the link from the slides, Goodreads and Amazon. This is one of your best tools, especially working with kids. Why? Because sometimes we can't get the kids to talk about what they liked or didn't like about a book. And sometimes, especially if they didn't like it, they're afraid to tell the library lady what they thought of it, because they're afraid that you're going to be personally upset that they didn't like it. So I love creating a situation where people can not like a book, but then they have to say why they didn't like it, and then they can move on and we can find them a book they do like. But sometimes you need access to that raw emotion. So 1-star reviews and 5-star reviews, people who loved 5-star or hated a book, are a great way for you to get a pulse on a book, especially a book maybe you're considering purchasing, or a book that, like Amulet, for example, which you know is going flying out, but what do people really like about it? And so why are people loving this book? So look at all those 5-star reviews. What about it do they love? What other books could I be buying to give again so nobody leaves unsatisfied, and I can find a way to talk those other books into my book talks with them. I want to show you one of my favorite secret fun resources, and if you were looking on that page I had up, when all else fails, you can distract them. Wait till you see this. This is so much fun. This is one of my favorite tricks. This is Ganooks. This is a literature map. You can get to it again, ganooks.com, through the 10 rules. This is Rick Riordan's page, for example. I picked him obviously for a reason. He's very popular, but I'm going to explain the reason in a minute. What I love about this is when you're desperate to help someone, or you have a kid who's just super reluctant and doesn't want to share, give you information, pull this up on an iPad, pull this up on a computer screen, pull it up on your OPAX, and show it to a kid. Look at all these other authors. And I say, well, you read, Percy Jackson. Is there any other author here you've ever heard of? And maybe they see one they've heard of, or maybe you will get ideas that you didn't have before. This is completely computer generated. People go in and list an author they like, and then it is not foolproof. There's no person modulating this. So of course I do have some adult authors on this page that would not work because somebody read, and there's also all the way up to 15 here and down to children's. So we have Captain Underpants Dave Pilkey, but we also have Marie Lou, who's not going to be read by your elementary school students the same. So the fact of the matter is, though, this gives them a whole world of authors that they can look at and think about, and you can go through with them. But it might spark conversation. It's also pretty cool, and it shows that you have like a cool trick that they didn't know about. And I always like that. I got kids. I know how that works. So that, very quickly, are my 10 rules of basic RA service. Now we're going to get into, for the rest of the presentation, exactly how we're going to make this Reader's Advisory stuff work for you. Again, my goal is to help give you my tips from the public library and show you how they've been implemented in the school library and how we can create these lifelong learners and lifelong readers and library users. So why do we do displays? Well, in the public library, we have a lot to say about why we do displays. Here's an example from the LaGrange Public Library Youth Services Collection. On the top is their new books display. It's actually two-sided, and on the bottom are a display of suggested reading lists. Of course, there are many other displays. I could only fit a couple pictures on each. But why do we have displays? The main reason we have displays in libraries is because patrons gravitate to a smaller universe of books. Even in the school library, where we have smaller collections than we do at the public library, it is a lot of books. It is overwhelming to anyone, to adults, let alone students. And they have, in a public library, you're coming in, and if you notice, public libraries these days have so many displays because patrons gravitate to that smaller universe of books. They go somewhere where there's fewer books, and then they pick out the ones that they want from there because it's less confusing than the mass of stacks. That picture of me from the beginning was me in the stacks in youth services. That's a lot of books. But I also love about displays is it shows your patrons that you get them. So I have a new book display up here, but in public libraries we do a lot of, current event displays. So maybe an author dies, so we do it in remembrance. Maybe like Downton Abbey starts, so we said, getting ready for Downton Abbey, here are books, you may enjoy. Lots of things you've seen, try while you wait for the new James Patterson, here are some other books you might like. Those kind of displays we're always putting up at libraries, not just to showcase our collections, but to show the patrons that we understand what they want and we're going to give it to them. I don't think school libraries do this as well. Because school libraries have curriculum and other issues going on of things they have to do, they forget about showing the kids that they're there for their wants too. But what kind of displays do we see in a public library? Well, mostly we see, like I said, new books. Staff picks are really popular in public libraries. Again, suggested reading lists. So reading lists of this is books for grades 2 and 3, and it's fiction, nonfiction, recommended if you like. Multimedia displays are really popular at school libraries, and I think this works really well for middle school and high school libraries. Not just multimedia displays, but multimedia collection shelving. So, a lot of libraries are now doing, maybe you have the book, the movie, and the audiobook, and then even a QR code for the Overdrive ebook version of something. And you can do that in a display. But what I really love is in teen collections when they start to put those on the shelf. So like when you go to John Green, you have like the book, the movie, the QR code, so they can go right to the Overdrive. It works great for teens. And the audiobook too. They're becoming really popular, have a big resurgence. If you have audiobooks at your school library, remind the students that they are allowed to check them out and copy them to their computer to turn into MP3 to put on their device to listen to, and then as long as they delete it after, because the library checkout is one fair use, and that is one fair use. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you then delete it after you've listened to it and you don't save it or share it with your friends. But if their friends really want it, they can check it out at the library and do the same thing. That is a tip I like to share whenever possible, and it's very popular with teens, especially the teens who are doing a lot of podcast listening or YouTube watching. They already have their headphones in all the time, and a great way to get books in there. You can't do like a preload them onto a site. That someone asked me that once, like, can the school preload them since they own it? No, if you have audiobooks, you can't do that. But you might want to also look into an audio service for teens because that's really a growth area. A little bit less so for the younger kids. But that's my multimedia push there. But here's a display that I am constantly telling public libraries to do, and I'm going to tell you to do it in a minute, but return cards. you are missing out on happy patrons if you don't put your return cards out as a display. You might not call it a display, but if you don't have your return cards out where patrons can see them and root through the books, you are missing out. Here's why. Patrons view the return card as books that have been pre-approved. Now, I understand that somebody could have taken that book home, read 2 pages of that book, closed it in disgust as the worst book ever, and returned it. Or, conversely, they could have taken that book home, that book on the return cart, and read it 3 times. And it's become a favorite that they even went to the local bookstore and bought a copy because it's their favorite, and anything in between. Patrons know this. Patrons have had experiences with books they've checked out and hated and books they've checked out and loved, and everything in between. But for some reason, when they come into the library, they forget about personal experience, and they go to that return cart. When I worked at the Berwyn Library, our return carts were so popular, they recently built shelves to put the returns on so people can browse them more easily because people were like rooting through them and moving them, and they were falling off the carts. We just put shelves there. You can look at everything that's out there. But it is awesome, and it is such a positive thing for patrons because they can see, they think those books have all been loved, but they're pre-approved in some way because somebody else checked them out and took them home. I don't let them know that sometimes when we find books that are misshelved, we just shove them on the return cart. It doesn't matter. It's the perception. They're gravitating toward the smaller universe of books. You make them so happy by putting out your return carts, and you make your job easier because sometimes you don't need to reshelve the books because they've been checked out again. The other thing you need to know about displays is it's always, at public libraries, there's always a mixture of permanent and rotating. What I have here are examples of sort of 2 permanent displays, recommended book lists, although the lists change, and new books, and although obviously the books change. But you want to make sure you're also rotating them so people notice when they come back. Okay, let's move to the school library. Okay, so that's the basis of how we do displays in the public library. Let's talk about school library displays. Again, these are pictures of displays from the CASET LRC. Why do you care about doing displays in the school library? Well, you obviously want to grab the students' attention. They're in the school library for such a short amount of time. They usually only have like a 10-minute or 20-minute checkout period, not even 20, usually it's like 10, where they can like get books for fun. You need to grab their attention right away. You need to give them a smaller universe of books to be gravitated toward, And think about it. It's scary, all those books, and some of them, they know that a lot of them are for schoolwork. Like, they want to know the books they want to read for fun. Now, schools are great at making die-cut bulletin boards and really, things that are all about reading, maybe like, like at the season, like winter reading fun or something, but it's more than just that. You also need to use what you have to highlight things. So the first example on the top were these little cubby holes that were built into the wall. It's a very old building, and they were just really, honestly, crap was stacking up there for years. In fact, one of them was covered by a bulletin board for a while. And Kelly really worked. She said, you know what? These are wonderful assets. She had she had the custodial staff make her shelves, and the parent took those, up top it says new. It's cut out of books that have been weeded, and she took those, and it was a dad, and he made them into the word new. There's one on the other side. There's a doorway to the left, and on the other side, to the left of that, is one that she's done for the Rebecca Cotto books, which you can see something else she's done with that down below. And so that display is always there. What I love about this display is that it is all the new books in one place. The school is K through 6, so there's a huge range of reading, and all those books are there. So sometimes now that we have the new bookshelf, because before they had like the new picture books on top of the picture books, the new fiction by the juvenile fiction, the new nonfiction and the nonfiction. But unless you went to that section, you didn't see it. Well, now, right away, you can go see every new book the library has that isn't checked out. And older kids are checking out picture books again, which is so nice. Why not? I love reading picture books. How many grown-ups bought that, there are no pictures in this book, or who love the pigeon books or something? I ran an adult book lovers club where we came and talked about books we loved. It was at a bar in Berwyn for many years. And one time someone came and talked about the new pigeon book because they're fun. Again, this is for their fun book. Let them see what's there and encounter books they might not have if they didn't go to that section. And so when you find a picture book that you really liked on this shelf, you might go back as a 6th grader to the picture book shelf and read a book that maybe was a classic or a favorite or something new that you missed. All right, so there's my plug for the new book display to have in schools. It works really well. What else works great for schools? Student picks or some kind of student-driven reviews, which is what you're seeing in the second set of pictures. Those are the Rebecca Caudle. It was actually like last year. It was maybe 2 years ago. This is an older picture. And what they started doing, this was the first year that they piloted. It's up again. So this is the picture of a bulletin board. It's actually right near the printers that a lot of the students are coming to get many of their printouts, so it gets high traffic. The sixth graders from last year wrote reviews of the next year's Rebecca Caudle. So these were last year's Rebecca Caudles. So this was 2 sixth graders ago. But at the end of the year, in the gifted class, they were given the books to read, and they broke up and they wrote a review, and you can see a little close-up of the reviews there about what they liked about the book and why they enjoyed it, and who, maybe even some of them even said what other books it was like. And then for the whole next year, that hung next to the display, very similar to the new, except it has an RC at the top for Rebecca Caudle, with those Rebecca Caudle books. And even if the book wasn't on the shelf, people could read about the book or read a student review. Student speaking to students is so powerful. You have to facilitate that, though. It doesn't just happen. Students aren't going to talk about books on their own in this kind of controlled setting that you can market. They might just do it because they love a book on the playground. But what great skills you're teaching. The kids have to take a book and condense it down to a review, and then they have to suggest it to their to the students that are coming up the next year about why they may want to read it. So you can get the teachers to do this activity. It seems fun to the kids, even though they're learning a valuable lesson, and you're using students to make picks to help other students. Of course, award displays are very good. This is an example of, I did not take pictures of where the Monarch and the Blue Stems are shelved, but because those are for the younger kids, and they're really popular, and we have multiple copies, but they go out a lot, there's doors in the LRC that you can't really hang a poster on. So we took the covers each year. She takes the covers and puts them there to remind the kids that those books are available at the library. They're also in areas away from where those books are shelved to remind kids to come back to them. For those kids, since those books are for younger kids, there's no reviews for them, but you could do that too. You can always do web-based displays. Again, it's that bridging the physical-virtual divide, which I talked about on the previous slide. And web-based displays work really well, as I started to mention, because you can do like a list of books. And the Caudle is a great example. You can take this stuff you've already done with the students and that you've posted in the library, put that on like a Google Sites, and then let other students who've read the book put in their 2 cents. Obviously, you have to have some kind of comment moderation for that, but almost always if there is, like the Google Sites is locked down for schools anyway, that there would have to be moderation. But you could find a way that you could moderate those comments and let the kids have their own conversations online. It's like they're used to doing on social media. They're already doing that. Why not provide that outlet about books? And then their parents are going to be happy because they're using their computers to talk about books on the school website, but they're already on their computer so much anyway. Why not inject the leisure reading into that too? And there's lots of ways you can do web-based displays. Another thing I like is if one grade is doing a whole topic, you could do a whole school display. And what I mean by that is if each grade has a topic, so in our school we have each grade does a bunch of different topics, but the Celebrating Cultural Connections is a big one. So my son's in 5th grade, so they do Williamsburg. So why can't the kids, as part of preparing for their festival for Williamsburg, they've been studying it at the end of January. January is their month. Like in the previous month, it was Prairie Days by the 3rd grade. Why can't they do sort of an exercise as part of their month-long, or in this case, I think it's 2 months long for Williamsburg, work, and create a display that the whole library can see? That's kids-driven with you obviously moderating it. Again, books that they found, books they talked about, things they learned, all the fun stuff, gather that up, and books that other kids might want to read in other grades. What's wonderful about that is if there's a 1 grade topic, and then you can turn that into the display, you get the younger kids looking at it because they're excited for when they get to do it. You get the older kids looking at it, remembering when they did it, and then there's a whole conversation about that is involved with the library in some way. And return cards. I see it. The return cards at the Casa School Library are behind the desk, but it's the low part of the desk, and the kids can see the return card, and they're constantly pointing, ooh, can you get that book for my friend? Or I want that book that's on the return card. Get the return cards out. Who cares if it doesn't look super clean and neat? At least while the students are coming through, you can push them behind later, at the end of the night. Get them out for the kids to root through them. They're going to be so excited and find books they might never have found. And if your return cards are super popular and the kids are enjoying it, you can also go through and pull some books out that you think they might enjoy from the stacks and put them on the return cart. Someone said that you had to be honest about it being they're on the return cart. So I like doing that too. I've done that before. But even more important for you guys at the school library than the public library, there's been studies to say that people make a public library visit approximately the average user, and this is a study that actually was done by the old when Rails was Metropolitan Library System. I can get that study for anybody who's interested. I actually have a PDF of it. Or actually, no, I have a hard copy of it. But the study said, and this was maybe like 10 years ago, that people visit every 3 weeks. Well, at your school, they're probably coming every week. Library checkout time is once a week. So it's really important you change it up. So you're going to have those permanent displays like New Books and Rebecca Caudle's, but you got to change up things. So you got to make sure that you're pulling out, you find areas to do displays. And displays can be on a small table. They can be on the top of a shelf. They can be on an empty shelf if you did some weeding. They can be anywhere in the library. You don't have to have special furniture to do displays. And I think that's really important to understand too. So, but you got to change it up because if the things stay the same all the time, people stop seeing them. I have a public library example for this, sort of going back before we move on to the next area. But by my desk, I wanted to get people to notice that we were sitting there because sometimes they would just walk right past us and not notice. So in a high traffic area next to the desk, we did a display that changed weekly. In fact, it never stayed up more than 10 days, but a week was our goal. And it was just a picture with no words and books to go with it. So, and it was adult books, but it was a picture of a dog and then books that somebody picked in our department because it made them either think of a dog or it had a dog in it or something. We made sure we got a variety of titles. And then the next week we change it. The fact of the matter is the fact that the picture always changed to something else. Sometimes a picture of a storm. Sometimes it was a picture. It was a heart. A woman, a man. It was just, they were provocative pictures, a design. But the picture changed. People stopped always. They're like, oh, that's different. Your eye stops you. Your brain stops you. So if you're changing up your displays, the students are going to know. Students are going to continue to notice them. Okay, let's move on to collection tweaks and what I mean by collection tweaks. In the public library, I have to say the public library has been a lot more willing and freer to do this than the school library is. And some of that is because in the school library, there are rules. You have to kind of keep the collection the way you need to keep the collection because you still need to teach your students library user instruction and all these other things that they need to learn. I get that. But let me talk about collection tweaks in a public library setting and then how we can maybe do those in a school library setting. Why are we doing collection tweaks? Well, for years, and this is one of the things I go into libraries constantly, I'm trying to break the mold. I can't believe it, I still meet librarians who feel like they have to keep the books perfect, they have to stay in order, oh my gosh, somebody ate while they were reading the book. Look, the books are your patrons' books. In the public library, the books belong to the entire community. They do not belong to you. They are for your patrons to browse and to check out. They are for people to touch, to get their grubby hands on, to possibly lose and destroy, and then we can replace them. This is the point. You are not successful unless every single book is checked out at the exact same time. You still have work to do. That is what I feel. That is a little bit heretic for some people, but you have to think about it this way. And the collection tweaks I'm talking about are ways to make your patrons' experience on the books they want to read, not the books they need to read or not the information they need to get, but the things they want to read and want to do for fun with their leisure time, making it easier for them. So what are ways that the public library has made collection tweaks? Well, the top picture is an example of what's called merchandising. It looks like it's at a bookstore. Here's a couple things that merchandising does in the public library. This is a great book for core collection, for nonfiction reading, Super Nature Encyclopedia, DK, and they actually have, I think, 3 or 4 copies. But this is in the section where that book would be housed by its Dewey. However, the top shelf was cleared. That's one collection tweak. The top shelf was cleared. There was a lot of weeding done. So books can be merchandised on that shelf. Also, it's harder to reach for the children. So it was where we showcase books. And there are 2 copies. This shows not only that we think this book is important because we're highlighting it, but that we have multiple copies of it. So we know it's popular. So, hey, check it out. Don't feel bad. It's not the only one. You can grab it. Also, this kind of serves as a marker for that section because, look, This book is out of its Dewey order. I'm sorry. If that gives you hives, you should not have come to my talk, because I'm going to talk a little bit about taking things out of the perfect Dewey order, because I want people to find them. So that book should be somewhere, I think, in the 600s. I'm more of a fiction girl, but and cutter numbers. But that books under it are all in that general area. Those books are all in Dewey order, and this book would be in that column or the column next to it, but it's being highlighted there. It's serving as a marker that, hey, this section's about nature, you know? And so you get a really cool book out there that's popular, and maybe you get them to look at some of the other books. So it does two things. With it draws attention to that book specifically, but it also draws attention to that section. Below is an example of easier to browse shelving. This is when we built the new LaGrange library. We put in that picture book flip shelving, so and it's down at the kids level, so the kids can get their grubby hands in there. I love it, and flip through the books and pull them out, and make a mess. It's great because even the littlest kids are getting their hands on the books, enjoying the library. So what if the books are out of order? It keeps jobs for the pages. It's about the kids experiencing the books and having a positive experience with them. So there's some easier to browse shelving that's a little more inviting and pro-patron. Collection tweaks are all about being for the person using the library. They are not about the librarian, and that's a huge thing. It's about patron engagement. I like to say when I give my talks, all right, guys, we're going to start from the beginning. I always say, first thing I tell you is it's not about you. It's about them. And if you keep remembering that, you're going to just have a more positive experience in general. Some libraries are going to be free. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that because it just doesn't work in a school library setting because you are trying to teach library skills. But examples of, I'm going to give you small examples of sort of not Dewey Free, but Dewey Unchained in the school library. But Dewey Free is when you maybe take like every book that has anything to do with travel. So like let's say we got Europe, like Italy, France, England, and you put the travel books, and well, for England this doesn't work. The language books and like maybe the cooking doesn't work for England either. Maybe Italy and France. But you have all your areas of the world, all your travel books in one area, and you put anything that has to do with travel together, whether or not they would have been in the 400s or the 600s or the 900s in one section, more like a bookstore. And maybe even buying multiple copies and putting them in different areas. So, obviously keeping all the language books together, but maybe putting like one copy of your most popular Learn Italian book next to the Italy travel book with a little sign that tells you where to go. All right, so that's Dewey Free. And public libraries are doing a lot of age group separation. Tweens are a great example here. A lot of, and LaGrange public library is a good example. There is somebody in the youth department and somebody in the teen department who are consciously working together to provide services to tweens and providing lists in both areas depending on where they are. And that's a great example of a collection tweak in a public library. But let's talk about collection tweaks you can do in your school library. Again, let's start with the why. Why are we doing collection tweaks in a school library? Well, the collection, again, is not for you. It's for the students and the teachers. So you want them to find the books that they want to find easily. And you want them to find the books they want to enjoy, especially the students. And again, I talked about the limited amount of time. The more collection tweaks you can make that make it easier for the students and teachers to find books for their students to enjoy is going to help you. Also, nonfiction is huge in this core curriculum push. So finding ways, kids they would go to the fiction side for their fun reading. I've put, make sure you put all your graphic novels in a graphic novel section. That at least gets them over to the nonfiction. Some libraries are putting them in fiction. Oh, well, they're reading them for fun. No, get them in the nonfiction. Get them over there. Find ways to move kids to the nonfiction section for fun because there's a lot of books there. I'm going to talk about how we can make collection tweaks specifically to highlight leisure nonfiction because the fiction sells itself, quite honestly. You don't need to do too much there. But you do need to walk that fine line between ease of use and still keeping bibliographic instruction. So I understand that. I'm conscious of that. I'm not going to tell you to do anything extremely radical. Well, maybe it will be radical for you, but I'm still keeping in mind that you can't just put the books, by color. I don't want to do that, obviously, but these are the, I'm not going to be that radical. How are we going to do this? Well, here's how it was done at the COSIT LRC. Small shelving changes. So we can't afford to switch out all the picture book shelving, which is looking at in the top picture. That's the traditional picture book shelving. That picture book area is a cart, though. and that cart has the flip book. Now, it's actually been thinned out in this picture because this was right before the school book fair, so everything was really clean. But you can flip those on both the top and the bottom, just like those flip shelves at the LaGrange Library on the previous slide. And what's fantastic about that is you can change that out all the time. You don't have to just put picture books in there, although it works really well for picture books. But it's a great way to create little small displays or pull out little smaller collections with a small shelving change. And that cart doesn't cost a lot. And it's easy to do, and you can move it around. So right now it's by the picture books, but why couldn't you put it in the larger nonfiction area and pull out some books in different topics, and maybe even label them in each section? There's just lots of ways you can do that. Again, changing it frequently too. But one of my favorite things is that that we've done at the Cosset School Library is an easy nonfiction section. And let me explain this. And this is a pretty radical collection tweak, but I think it's really important to highlight nonfiction starting at a young age. So the nonfiction section is large at the school library. This is a school of like 600 students. And again, I said K through 12, or K through 6. So there's a lot of age ranges. But there was so much nonfiction that was geared toward the older kids for school assignments. But then the push for core curriculum and incorporating more leisure nonfiction, so there's more push to get the younger kids reading the nonfiction. Well, the nonfiction was so compact, it hadn't been weeded, it was too much, and they'd go over there, and honestly, the younger kids would be a little bit frightened because they're used to the shorter shelves, which you can see on the bottom, that are their books, that are the picture books and then the easy readers. It was just too much. Why not create an easy reader nonfiction section, though? Because there was so many nonfiction, and it was too much and overwhelming for the kids. They used to not allow kids before second grade to go into the nonfiction to find books for fun, which is so sad. It made me so sad always. I would go get them books anyway, which they could get with help. But why not discover the joys of that, especially for boys who really like nonfiction? I have a boy who reads so much nonfiction. So what we've done is we pulled out, we had an easy reader collection for fiction. Why not have an easy reader collection for nonfiction? Now, again, this push was helped by the fact that there's a push with the core curriculum to do more nonfiction at a younger age. So there was money to buy more books. And we then went through and pulled out all the books in that collection that were in the regular nonfiction that were mostly geared toward like a first or second or third grade audience, mostly kindergarten, first and second. Those kids weren't allowed to go in and get them, so they weren't finding them, and they were just clogging it up for the older kids who didn't want to read those. And in a shelving very similar to what you're looking at on the top, low shelves for the younger kids, still in Dewey order, but pulled out of the larger Dewey, are the easy reader nonfiction. And what is so great about it is we've tried to have books from every major Dewey area, and we're still making it larger, but it draws the kids to it. They can look at nonfiction in a way that they hadn't before for fun. They might find a topic they really enjoyed. And then now we're starting to see, especially the little bit older, the second graders, learn to take that number to the larger collection and find more books that they would enjoy. And then it introduces them to nonfiction. This will be won over really great with your administrators because you're getting a circulating of nonfiction, which is so key to the core curriculum. On the other way, you want to pull out popular collections and rotate. So we're already doing that, let's say, like if we have a curricular thing, like we're studying presidents, so we're pulling out books about presidents. Or we're studying prairie days, so we're pulling out books about the prairie and doing that curricular support. But what about popular topics such as mythology? Why aren't we pulling out our Rick Riordan books, but also all the other books we have on mythology, and maybe using that rotating or small shelving changes or some kind of cart to just put them on a display, but in a way that you can show them and highlight that you have this as a collection. And there's that. Flexible Dewey teaches better Dewey. I want to talk about that too, because I also do cataloging for the library, as I mentioned, and there are many times when Kelly Davis and I have long conversations about where we should put a book based on how it's going to be used in our school. And was it a book that was purchased for a curricular reason, in which case we need to put it with the other books in that section. So habitats are studied in one of the grades. So we need to make sure all our books about all the different habitats are together. So obviously we all make Dewey tweaks. We make flexible Dewey for that to help curriculum. But what about to help kids find books they want to read for fun? think about where you're putting a book. A great example is, for some reason, and I don't remember the actual library science behind it, but Titanic books were in two completely different sections of the library. Some were in the 300s, I think, for disasters, and some were in the 900s for history. But they were about, 5 years ago, every kid was reading Titanic books. And they were in different places, so we're running back and forth trying to get the books, and they're like, there are no books on the shelf. Maybe where you are in the 300s, but there are in the 900s. And there was a reason those books were put there, and maybe technically some of them are in the 300s because they're more about the disaster part, and some are in the 900s because they're more about history. Who cares? Be flexible with Dewey and get all those books together. Make sure they're together in a place where people can find them, because that's what matters. It's about the students and teachers finding the books that the kids want to read for fun, and about making it easy for them, not what the library science rules dictate to us. And finally, I'm going to make my plea for weeding with actual examples of how it works. But I have to say first, weeding is so much more problematic in a school library than it is in a public library. And I understand this, having been in big weeding projects in both public and school libraries. So I do want to say to you, you need to weed, okay? But you first need to talk to your administrators and teachers and educate them as to why you're getting rid of books. Because when administration, when parents, when teachers see you getting rid of books, they think that that means that the books aren't necessary anymore. Even though that is not the case, even though I'm going to give you the reason why you weed that you can talk to your administrators about also. But the fact of the matter is, you need to educate them before you start taking piles of books out. Even if they are old, gross, scrubby books, you need to tell them ahead of time, because it's going to be a lot of problems for you if you don't. Okay, so now you've gotten permission to weed. Everybody's on board. Here's why you weed, and this is your argument to give to them too, and here's how it works. I'm going to use animal books as an example, because look, obviously we have to get rid of like the Pluto books, but the animal books, giraffes don't change. The books about giraffes have the same information from 1970, from 1980, from 2005 to 2016. And the kids are going to go to the animal sections because they love reading books about animals, especially when you let them free into the nonfiction. The animal section's one of the ones they go to. But when they go in there and all they find are old books, with dated pictures and faded covers and torn this and that, they're going to be like, oh, this isn't a great book. They're not going to get excited about that book, even if they love the information inside of that book. It's not going to get them excited about reading. It's not going to get them excited about using the library. So why not pull out those old books about giraffes and buy brand new, pull out the old 5 books about giraffes and buy 3 new ones. And then you can even highlight them on a new shelf, or maybe pull them out and show them that, look, we've got new books about animals, and show them off when you have a chance to book talk, or bring them to the classroom when I talk to you about getting out of the library and being like, hey, here are 5 new animal books I just got. We got so many more animal books. Who wants to read these? And give them out and check them out to them when you write down their names and go to your library and check them out to the kids. But here's what happens. The kid finds a sparkly new book about a giraffe. They find an old book about a giraffe. They're like, oh, I like giraffes. I'm going to read it because I like giraffes. But they're like, yeah, it was fine. Then they find a sparkly new book about giraffes. And they get excited. Oh, it's got crisp pages. It's got awesome pictures. It's got, it's got language that isn't dated from the 1970s. It's got, great pictures. They take it home. They read it. They're like, I loved this book. They go back to the animal shelf to look for more books. They find another new book. And they have a great, wonderful, positive experience with the school library. The school library had the book I wanted. It was fun and pretty, and I loved reading it. Instead of, it was good. There's just this great, and they talk to their friends about it. But then what I have seen happen is they keep going back to that section, and maybe they drift to the left or the right, and they end up at books about something completely different. Maybe they end up in the science books in the 500s. Or maybe they end up looking at transportation books, because they're moving through your collection because you have nice books that are books that they want to browse. When you make collection tweaks, you make a collection that people want to browse. And you know that I still remember that serendipity of finding that great book that I found because I was browsing and found it on my own. So that's my plug for weeding and how it works. The last thing we're going to do today, okay, there we go. Okay, let's talk about programming. Sorry, my computer froze. Look, I'm going to just talk quickly about the public library. The public library has a lot more time and money and budget and staff and space to do programming. So, and this is something that, the kids start going when they're babies to story time. So for many kids, they remember the programs at the public library. So they also can do a wide range because of all those space, budget, staff, all that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about everything that you can't do, but they can do movies, events. This is an example from an anime fest because there's a huge room that holds 100 people in the basement of the library, and then there's a gallery outside where there were pictures hung, and then there were places to have refreshments, and the library's open 12 hours a day, not just during school for the 10 minutes they can come in. So obviously you can't do this, but this is the sort of stuff the public library is doing. All these different things listed here. Can schools compete with this? You might think you can't, and I'm going to tell you why you can today. Because here are ways you can rethink programming and do them in your school library and recapture some of that joy and excitement that these kids you had. Look at that excitement from coming to a library program, those teenagers. They're super excited. How do we get that spirit in the school library? Well, if you can't beat them, join them. And I know I said I was going to talk about collaboration, but I just want to mention that inviting the public libraries in to talk about their programming gets kids excited about the library. And if they hear about it in your building, then they're excited about the library in your building, and they think they're excited about your library. I know it's like a trick, but it's a mind trick, but it works. But here's things they can come and talk about. Summer reading program or battle of the books. Those are whole other topics that do not need to be covered today. But what you can do is use their model as a guide and listen to what they're doing and maybe start to do that at your library in a small way, because it's what your students used to. Up at the top is a picture of Miss Rachel from the LaGrange Library, Public Library at a school talking about summer reading. I think this was in District 105. I don't think this was at the school where I work. In fact, I know it's not. But it was at a school in LaGrange, though. And she's there talking about summer reading and getting people excited. At the Cossett Library, they come to this actual school library, and they do like a blind date with a book type thing. It's like a book shop. Actually, it's book shopping, but the public librarian is very involved with it, so the kids know that it's both of them working as a team. But let's talk about how you can do some program. Like I like to call it small but mighty. Book clubs. Does your school do book clubs? Do you have book clubs at lunch? Some schools do them at lunch where parents run them. Some schools do them at before school. The middle school that my kids go to, the junior high, did like a before school book club with donuts to bring the kids in before school and they could talk about books. And they also have ones that meet at lunch or meet after school. So there's lots of different ways you can do that. And just getting kids to come and talk about books. I wrote the word genre studies here, and I don't mean it in necessarily the sense that we're talking about like studying mysteries, because they're doing that in class. But are they studying mysteries in class in that grade? Great. Then tell the kids for the book club this month, you don't have to read a specific book. Come and talk about a mystery you've read that's your favorite of all time and you liked, or just do that in general. Survival books are really popular now, which isn't really a genre. But, are you reading those I Survived? What other survival stories do you want to talk about? Come. We're just going to have I call it a book lovers club, where you just come and talk about books you love. And focusing it on a genre is a good way to get the teachers on board, to get them included. So maybe, like I said, they're studying mysteries in a certain grade. You can have the kids come and talk about other mysteries they've read, not just the ones they're reading at school, and maybe have a facilitated conversation in the library. And maybe it's not mandatory. Maybe it's just a program for kids who want to do it. But that's a great way to have a different kind of book club. But a really great thing you can do, and there's a picture of the author, Jennifer Nielsen, who's the author of The False Prince and most recently A Night Divided, who recently came to the Cossett School Library. And I have to tell you that Anderson's Bookshop, I'm going to do a plug for them. They did just open a store in LaGrange, but even before that, they've worked with the school library for years to bring authors in. Why? It's a win-win for everybody. They actually have somebody on staff who works with schools. They even run the school book fair. They do our school book fair. You can hire them to provide the books for your school book fair. But what does this do? Well, the local bookstore, wherever you are, is already bringing authors in. Why aren't you calling and finding out who those authors are? They're usually here during the day. They can come into the school. In this case, we work out a thing with Anderson's where ahead of time there's an order form, and if people want to order a book, it is not required. They can, and the author will sign them, which is really nice. But either way, the author comes in and does a talk. She did this awesome talk, Jennifer Nielsen, about imagination and how people lose their imagination over time, and actually included the teachers in it. She did some exercises with the kids. They came out of school that day, and every kid was talking about her visit. It's a win-win for everybody. An author came to school and got the kids talking. It was the greatest thing they did that day. The bookstore's happy because you sold books. The author's happy because you introduced her to kids without their parents there. They weren't, she got to talk to them at their own level. And the administrators are happy because you're doing programming in the school library. So that's a link to Anderson's Bookshop. You can call them about how you can bring authors to your school. They're always looking for bringing authors to schools. And here is my last slide about at least teaching you, with a thank you to Kelly Davis, the Cosset School LRC Director, and Diane Danbury, the assistant, who helped me with a lot of these pictures and who I've worked with for many years at the library. They're in the fiction collection right there. What I want to say to you is that, this is the ideas that we've done. You need to make it yours. Again, I am a public library expert. I'm not a school library expert. I've done things at one school. I've been and visited other schools. These are things that work. Visit your local public library, though, and get ideas and stay up to date on what they're doing, because especially if it's the school, if it's the library in the school district you work in, because the kids are also going to the library, and that's what they're seeing and encountering. Do you find ideas there that you really like? Do you want to make some of your things similar to the experiences they're having there? Or maybe, maybe you're doing things better than them, and you could start up a conversation about how you guys can make things more similar. But the key thing here is to involve everybody, involve all the staff and all the students. I've given you some ideas, like student-created displays. Let them have ownership of things in the library. When kids are at school, so much of their day is dictated by the testing and the curriculum and all the things they have to do. But when they want to do something, and when they really like something, we want to capture that energy. And I am telling you, if you make it available for kids to be in charge of making the displays, and even if it's just one small display area, and you let maybe like different classrooms have like a week or a 2-week period that they get to come in and pull all their favorite books, and you can say like Mrs. Vieser's 5th grade favorite books. Why not? That just gets them excited that they're sharing books they love. They get to feel like they're doing something to help the school. They get to do something they want to do, not something they have to do. And then you get other kids excited for their turn to do it. So easy. That's just one way to get them involved. Another way, my school does Big Buddies, and they work with 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. Each have a 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and there's only one half-day kindergarten because there's a full-day off-site kindergarten. But they all meet up with a class, and they have little buddies that they work with, and they do projects with. Why can't one of the projects be going to the library and talking about your favorite books? Why can't the 2nd grade little buddy share their current favorite book, and the 5th grade big buddy share their book that that they liked when they were in 2nd grade? Or maybe even tell them about the book they're reading now that they like and why they like it. Again, you're getting people to talk about books and reading outside of the school classroom setting, outside the learning setting. You're creating people with a library habit and lifelong readers this way. And what about student-directed genres? Like I mentioned before, survival books are super popular. They are. The kids are checking them out. They're asking for them. Why not have them talk to them about getting more of those books and getting them to be like, you know what? I know you're learning about mysteries, but what about all these survival books? These are like adventure. Talk to them about it and see if they can have some say in displays and where you shelve them and how you highlight them. Just involve them in it. Acknowledge that they're reading books in a certain area that might not be traditional, the things they're learning about in school, but that it has value. And then also think about your specific curriculum and what you're doing to support that, because what would the teachers like to see as extensions to the things they have to do? Because they get bogged down and upset and worried about all the things they have to fit in. They would love it if there was a way that you could fit in things that lightened up the load but still hit their requirements. And where can you do that? Leisure reading. Finding the kids fun books is one place you can do that, because you already know what you have to do for the curricular support. But how can you go in and sort of make their job easier? Are they really doing a focus on, math? Are you trying to beef up the school's math scores? Well, there's a lot of great fiction being written now about math, and there's a lot of great leisure nonfiction with like riddles and word problems and fun little number things that I know our school library is buying for those core curriculum things. Why not introduce those for fun? It'll be a good extension to what they're learning. But most importantly, the whole thing I'm trying to teach you today is giving the Becky Reader's Advisory worldview, and to remind you that you want to make using the library for fun reads a priority. That is the basis behind everything I do. What I've dedicated my career to is that, especially especially for adults, that, I have to be there for what they need, but I want to be there for what they want. When they don't expect it, when they have those fun moments, when they find that book that's going to become a lifelong favorite, that is what needs to be your priority. Your users are going to be happier. Your students are going to be happier. They're going to want to come to the library. They're going to find a place where their needs are met and exceeded. They're going to find a place that's driven by them, which is so great. But most importantly, I know this from experience. When you make readers happy and you get people talking about books and you get people excited about sharing books, you're recapturing the joy of your job. You're not stuck in the rut of always having to do the paperwork and all the stuff you don't want to do, and find the things that you love doing. And again, if the kids leave your school, whatever level school you're teaching at, happy with the library, they're going to have started a library habit. It's going to be part of their life, and they're going to keep using it as adults. And everybody in a community is enriched if people use the library and continue reading and continue keeping their minds working and continue educating themselves. So that is very quickly Reader's Advisory for school libraries from my perspective. Again, the slides are on the recent presentations page of RA for All, and you can contact me anytime with questions. There's all my contact information, everything you could possibly need to reach me in many different ways. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, and again, send me emails. I do not mind answering questions. I am also willing to talk to you on the phone about your school and anything specific, but I can also come and do personalized training for you and help you incorporate some of these techniques into your space, your collection, your curricular needs, and your students. And we can talk about that and pricing for that in a separate time. But I'll talk to anybody on the phone or an email about any questions, either today, but also later if you have very specific needs or concerns that you want help with. And I thank you for your time, and I have left 10 minutes for questions if anyone has any questions.
Hi, Becky. It's Louise. We have not
Hi, Louise.
Hi. We have not received any questions yet for your presentation. Somebody's asking about the PDH credits. Let me just address that.
Okay.
No, I do not need the IEIN number today if you didn't have them when you registered. If you put them on your evaluation form later, that's fine. So.
Yeah, and I realize this was a lot of information for people to take in. For many, it might be the first time they're hearing some of this stuff too. So that's why I really stress that if you have questions now, great, I'm here. But you can email me and you can tweet at me, like anything you want. You can call that cell phone number. Like I will talk to you about your specific needs once you've sort of thought them through too.
Yeah. So yes, I don't see any other questions coming in. So somebody just commented that she enjoyed hearing your passion, and a little smiley face. So thank you, as always, Becky. It was really thorough and a lot of great advice, and I appreciate your time today.
And good luck to everybody out there, because I know it's a lot when you're in the school library, and I hope this helped you rekindle some of that passion and enthusiasm for getting books in the hands of kids.
Yeah. All right. Actually, if you have a question, another person has asked, what do you think about genrefying? That's how it was phrased.
Oh, yeah. I think they mean like trying to force books into different genres, or the fact that there's like genre fiction is really popular. If that's not right, you can type while I'm talking. But there is this sort of push to fit all these books into little boxes. And when I give my talks to public librarians, I say, you know what the biggest trend in genre fiction is? That there are that genres are all blending now. So lots of publishers put that genre label on books, and it's hard. It's tricky. That's why I really think when I talk about reading widely and reading about books, make sure you understand why someone would like a book beyond its genre. So don't just say, wonder is realistic fiction, or, something's adventure fiction, or something's, a mystery. Why? Why would someone want to read it? What makes this book worth reading over a different book? And if you focus on those whys, those adjectives that describe the book, that this book has great characters, that's the first thing you say. Or the setting is really unique. Do you want to read a book set in, Victorian London? Then this book is for you. It happens to also be a mystery. So that is a great way to get people excited about books.
All right. Well, I don't have any other questions, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. So thank you again so much, Becky, for your time today.
Okay, thanks everybody. I will hopefully hear from some of you soon. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks. Bye, everybody. Have a good afternoon,
Bye.
evening. Bye.